Welcome to the show. This is the last episode of Sacred Ancestry podcast. And I know what you're thinking, like, what? Are you serious? This has been amazing. And I agree with you. And what I'm so excited about is it's not the end of my podcast journey or your listening journey, but it's an evolution into the next level, the next way of thinking for this podcast. And the reason I'm changing this is because the podcast started for me as just a dream of like, I just want a podcast and I just want to do what I want to do. I want to interview guests that I want to interview and ask them the questions I want. And it's been an amazing journey. And I want this podcast to be bigger. I want more listeners. I want more people to experience what you've been experiencing with these amazing episodes, these amazing guests. And for me to do that, I really need to focus more. I need to focus on who this podcast is for. What's the intention? What's the intention of every episode? What's the intention of the entire podcast? And Sacred Ancestry has been an amazing journey. And I'm so happy and so grateful for all the guests, all the amazing people, all the listeners that I have. Thank you so much. Because it's so inspiring that these conversations are reaching people out there and helping you go deeper into your own healing journey. That's what I made the podcast for. And I just want to go more specific. Just more specific. And what that means is, yes, I'm changing the name. I'm changing the artwork. I'm changing the flow slightly. You know what? It's really going to be the same. I still want to talk about energy, consciousness, spirituality, alternative healing, all those things. But what I want to focus on is healing through writing and the author's journey and the journey of first-time writers and what it's like to write your first book, that release, the frustration, the amazing journey that you go through, the integration that happens when you write a book. And I want to hear that perspective from new authors, from long-term authors, from people that write in their journal or blogs or articles or do a ton of copywriting, people that write every single day. I want to hear about that healing process, how writing helped them. And I also want to go deeper into their healing journey, just like I do with every guest, of what got you started in this? How did you become a coach or a holistic or spiritual entrepreneur? Like, what happened? Because most people don't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I think I'm going to be a coach, or I think I'm going to be a spiritual healer, or something like that. Oftentimes there's this terrible event or something that kind of turns their life upside down and they have to rebuild everything. And I know that's my story. That's what happened to me. And so that's the purpose of the next evolution. And the name of the podcast is going to change to The Shamanic Author. And the intention is that I want to inspire you, the listener, to write a book. I want to inspire you to truly achieve that dream of being an author. Because writing a book is, I think, one of the most deep healing processes I've ever gone through. And it's so powerful. And I guess when I look into it in a deeper way, it's like there's this field of information just around every human being that we're connected to. And it's like there's millions and millions of books just waiting to be written. And all it takes is that one little inspiration for somebody to just sit down, connect with that ether, with that spirit element, and sit down and write a book. Because writing, it's almost like you're taking the word of the universe and you're filtering it and then you're putting it on paper. And it's such an art because there's this blank canvas, this blank page that you're connecting with the universe, and you're getting inspired, like in spirit, inspiratu. and you're moving, changing, evolving in the moment with this spiritual energy, and you're writing it all out. It's an amazing experience. And what my favorite part about writing is that there's times when you look at what you wrote and you see your own consciousness, you see yourself on the page in a way that you never thought you could see yourself. And either this is an amazing insight, I can't believe I wrote that, or wow, this is deeper than I could ever imagined. And I have some work to do here. I have some learning. I have some deep core wounds here that I should be working on. And it just highlights where you're healing and maybe where you got some more work to do. That's my favorite part, is when your consciousness on the paper is staring back at you, and it's very insightful. And so the lineup already is amazing. There's like 15 people already. You got recording sessions scheduled, got meet and greets scheduled. There's so many guests that are going to come on there, just going to blow your mind with their writing experience, with the books, with what they're doing. You know, most folks that I'm going to interview are coaches, holistic or spiritual entrepreneurs, because that's the audience. That's who I want to connect with. That's who I want to inspire to write a book. Not just one, but write like 10 books. Because when you get into the shamanic author process, it's so easy. It's like you're connecting to this source energy, bringing it down to the physical realm by writing a book. And then I want to go deeper into occasional episodes about demystifying publishing, marketing, you know, self-published, traditional published, hybrid publishing. Like, what does all that mean? And how do you actually be a successful author? So I want to talk about energy. I also want to talk about marketing. I want to talk about the publishing. I want to talk about how do you be successful in this physical realm? Like, how do you actually write a book and be successful? Because there's so many experiences. I've heard from so many other people, so many authors, first-time authors out there, that they write a book, they publish it on Amazon, and they sell like 5 books. That's it. They sell like 5 books. And, you know, that's an amazing accomplishment. That is. But I want to help you be more like selling 5 to 10 to 50 books a day. That's where we want to be, right? Because that's success in my mind. That's somewhere in there. You're selling books every day. That's amazing, isn't it? Not just 5 books, but 5 to 150, whatever it is. You're selling books every day. I love that. And so I just want to talk to you more about, I mean, I personally have been going through an evolution through recording this podcast because, you know, I think you all know, if you've been listening, that, you know, I was a wildland firefighter for the last 14 years. An amazing career. Loved it. I saw so much. There's so much learning still happening. There's so much integration still. So much trauma. So many things to go deeper in. And I'm grateful for that. And the more release work I do, the more work I do with clients, the deeper I go into myself, I've started to realize that I'm not a firefighter. I wasn't really supposed to be, but it's the path I chose. And it was amazing. I would never change that. But I'm not a firefighter. And that made me question, like, well, what am I? If I'm not a firefighter, then what am I? Who am I? So it's been like this long evolving identity crisis, if you will, for a couple of years now. Like, I know I'm not a firefighter, but what am I? And when I really looked deep and asked my highest self, it came down to books. It came down to writing. It came down to writing, publishing, podcasting, coaching, energy healing, all that kind of stuff. That's who I am. That's what I want to be doing. And so that's why there's this shift, because there's more clarity. There's more vision for my company. Mountain Mind Tricks does support wildland firefighters and their mental health. That is what I do. I do that. And I also have a book publishing company under Mountain Mind Tricks Publishing that publishes first-time authors, coaches, holistic or spiritual entrepreneurs, and helps them market it, promote it, publishing, all of that stuff. So really the vision is a new kind of book publishing company where the first-time author maybe is dealing with imposter syndrome. Maybe it's like, I'm not good enough to be a writer, or who's going to listen to me if I write a book? Who cares if I write a book, right? I think most authors go through that. And there's something deeper to that. There's a core wound. There's maybe a limiting belief or some negative emotions around being seen or being heard. And that's where Mountain Mind Tricks Publishing comes in and helps that first-time author with breakthrough sessions. Like, we're going to do a breakthrough session first thing. We got to do the release work. We got to get rid of the baggage. So that way, when you're writing your first draft, it's flowing and you have the cleanest connection possible to your highest self, to source energy, to the universe. Because that way, your book is so much more clear, has so much more purpose and intention when you release the baggage first and then start writing. And this process is, after the writing, I get you an editor, get you a formatter, I get you a book cover designer. We get it published. And then I teach you how to create an author platform, how to market your book. And I think most publishing companies, especially the traditional companies, they publish your book and there's this huge spike in sales and that's it. There's no long-term strategy. And this is the key to success. And what's so amazing about this is there's a lot of major authors moving toward this self-published or hybrid published realm because there's so much more control over your media, your product. A traditional publishing company is going to tell you what you can and cannot write straight up. And then you're going to get 15% of the book royalties where, I don't want to tell you what you can and cannot write. If I like the book, I'm going to publish it. And then you're going to get 55% of the royalties. So it's just a totally different model of mental health, healing, alternative processes to help you move through the baggage in your life, to release the negative emotions, limiting beliefs, and really get connected with your highest self. And then write a book that's so profound. And here's the concept that I really want to stick to in this next podcast and this next version of my company, the next version of Thomas Worm, is that when a book heals the author, in other words, when you have such an intense writing experience that you actually have a transformation during the writing process, you're embedding that book with healing energy, with energy of transformation. And so when the reader reads that, they get a transformation. And I think one of the most, my favorite thing about books, there's a lot of my favorite things, but one of my favorite things is that I think we all have a book that changed our life. Like most people, especially in the personal growth realm, there's that one book that changed everything. For me, that was Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. That book, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that book. The other thing about books is that the writing, the words, as you read it, you're imagining this, right? And, you always hear people like, oh, the book was so much better than the movie. It's because your imagination is so much more real. And as a reader, you're truly experiencing a out-of-body experience. I mean, think about it. You're going into this Harry Potter realm or Lord of the Rings or whatever it is, this sci-fi novel, and you're going into that character. You're actually leaving your body and going into that character in a different reality. That's the way I see it. That's powerful to give somebody an experience like that. This is why I love books so much. It's such a interesting lens or view into alternate realities. It's powerful because there's so much healing and processing and release work to do while reading books, or lessons to be learned. So much knowledge in books. So as you can tell, I'm obsessed with books. I love them. I love writing. I love reading. I want to do it all. Like, books is the thing. And that's why the podcast is shifting. And I can tell you what it's going to look like is it's going to be very similar. So if you've been listening with me for a while, stay here because it's going to be amazing guests. And the only thing that's going to change is really, I want to talk about healing through writing and inspire you to write a book. Otherwise, it's going to be the same type of interview, the same kind of how did you get here? Let's just jam on this subject. Let's just go wherever the conversation goes. But there's a little more structure of, to be qualified to be on the podcast, you've got to write something. It could be a journal every day. Occasionally, I'm down for that. Ideally, you have multiple books and it's a major thing for you. Writing is your life, is part of your coaching business or your practice of some sort. So it's really about, I guess, going deeper into writing. The same format, same type of guests, same type of conversations. So I'm really excited. I'm super excited for this evolution, for this next version. And the transition is going to be seamless. I mean, there's no need to change anything on your part as a listener. The next episode is going to be the new podcast for you. I'm excited. The very first podcast episode next season, the Shamanic Author podcast, is this amazing gentleman. His name's Brent. He was a DNA technologist for DARPA, for Department of Defense. That's all I can say. What's so interesting is he was a very scientific person, really into the numbers, into the data, into critical thinking, that kind of thing, until he had an out-of-body experience. And then another out-of-body experience. And this kept happening to him for about a year or two, if I remember right. And he was so compelled to write a book about it because he received visions of Earth transformations, of what our civilization is going to go through in the future. Really deep questions that just, it compelled him, like, I got to get this information out here. I got to tell people, I got to write a book about this. And that's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of interview that I am stoked about. Like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm excited for that first episode because it's powerful. Brent has a really cool story and I'm excited. So that's what that next evolution is going to look like, is people like that. Some big guests coming on. Really excited. So stay here. Stay with the Sacred Ancestry podcast. Let's ride that wave together all the way into the Shamanic Author podcast, because you're going to love it. So if you've been here, season 2, Sacred Ancestry, 50 episodes or 30 episodes of just mind-blowing guests, mind-blowing topics, energy, healing, consciousness, all that kind of stuff. We're going to stay there. We're in that realm. We're just a little more focused on writing. So stay here. Thank you so much for listening. I love you all. Like, I really do appreciate all the listeners out there. And I'll see you on the new podcast on the next episode. All right. Thank you.